Wow, I am so happy to be here. Let me just start by saying I'm very thankful to be sharing space with all of you this morning. My name is Becca Ramos. I am a web designer on our brand studio team here at Figma, and a lot of my work touches on growth, experimentation, and overall thinking about how to design creatively for conversion. And this work has made me think a lot about what growth design is and how we might be able to use it to drive business impact, but also elevate design craft. And I know that there can be a tension that exists between those things, and that is where I'd like us to start today. So, we know that design is full of trade-offs. Do you prioritize metrics, or do you prioritize craft? Do you use what you have for the sake of efficiency, or do you advocate for taking the time to make something new? Well, what if I told you that we didn't have to choose? I know that that is very Libra energy of me, but I believe it's possible. So today, I want to talk about every designer's favorite thing, which is, of course, metrics and data. But I want to talk about how we can use them, again, not just to push business outcomes, but also to support craft and make our designs more strategic and creative. So here's where we're headed today. First, we'll define what growth design is. Then we'll get into why it matters, not just for business, but also for our mindsets as creative people. And lastly, I'll share some tools and workflows that we can use if you want to bring growth design into your process. So, without further ado, let's gab about growth design, starting with, what is it? Who is she? Growth design is the practice of using observation, experimentation, and data to improve user experiences and drive business outcomes. To me, it is just intentional, data-driven design. It means running experiments, looking at how real users are using the designs, and then letting those insights drive your next move. In practice, growth design can look a little different depending on what it is that you're testing. So, looking at a call to action button, for example, this button might, in your original design, live on the left side of the layout beneath your headline and your subheadline. And I mean, we love this button. She is stunning. But with growth design, we might try moving her to the right side of the layout because she is an independent girl, and we might see if that new location helps to drive more engagement and visibility through this new location. Now, these tests can go beyond just CTAs. So, for example, you might test, if you have something like a guide, an illustration, which is a little more conceptual, versus a visual that is a little more literal, like the guide itself. And a test like this can help you learn your audience and understand what engages them and helps these different types of visuals, engage them better. So these are two classic growth design experiments, the little black dresses of growth design experiments. But you might be saying to yourself, okay, Becca, I hear you. I get growth design. But why would I want to bring it into my process? How is this not a conflicting thing with craft? And why is it the move? Well, it's funny that you would use that exact phrasing. I was hoping this would come up today. Growth design is the move because it can truly elevate design thinking and business outcomes, and it can make them best pals instead of these two conflicting forces. And I know I'm up here making some claims, so I come with receipts. We'll start with the business side. I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm so excited about growth design, Growth design for business results. It can help you drive everything from improved user flows to improved engagement, improved conversion, and overall generating revenue for businesses. So of course, that's why it's the move on the business side. Testing anything from layouts to imagery to conversion can bring about some of these results. And I want to share a couple of designs that are experiments that I've been a part of that have helped drive this type of impact. So a quick disclaimer here. To respect the privacy of the brands that I've worked with, I did a designy thing, and I made a fictional brand from scratch, as one does. And her name is Yana, and she is not real, but the experiments that we'll be looking at are real, and so are their results. So buckle in with me. It's going to get a little bit nerdy, and that's all. It's just going to get a little bit nerdy. Okay, starting with experiment 1 here. With this experiment, we tested a headline on a main web page, and what we're looking at right now is variant A. It says, all your focus tools in one peaceful place. It's a lot more based on feeling, and it's rooted in benefits. For our variant B, we leaned into a more product-forward headline. So we can see it says Pomodoro, notes, and journaling. It's a lot more direct, and it's a straightforward list. In this test, variant B won, driving more conversions and signups within 2 weeks of testing. And we learned that the particular users on the site just responded better to this more direct type of messaging. This was surprising to me because I've actually seen in the past the opposite, where users respond quite positively to benefits. So another learning here was just around what works for some audiences, or even many, doesn't universally work for all. And that is why testing can be so helpful. So that experiment highlights messaging, but let's see one where design is driving more of the impact. Some context on this experiment. There was a web tool that was helping to drive traffic through Google search. And the idea was for users to ideally land on this page, absolutely love it, and then want to sign up for the full thing. So this was like a little tester, a mini version of the actual tool. This page was beginning to rank and gain more traffic, but the bounce rate was quite high and conversion was low. So we wanted to test it and see, without overhauling it, how we might be able to make it better. Looking at our design here, she has some room for improvement. Most notably, because of the size of certain things in the hero section, you couldn't see any of the content below the fold. So there's nothing kind of like intriguing people to scroll down. And secondly, once you scrolled past the CTA, or once you scrolled past the hero section, you no longer had access to your CTA to sign up, which was, of course, hurting conversion. To solve for this, we made the hero section and the UI a lot more compact and just gave the page a nice design pass. And with the extra space, we introduced a table of contents so that users who landed on the page now had easy visibility to all of the content below the page, as well as navigation down to those spots that were most relevant to them. And we also brought in a sticky CTA experience that drops down from the top of the browser window so that once the user is scrolled past that hero section, they can still click that button to sign up for the tool if they want to do so. The result of this test were that variant B, our refined design with the sticky CTA, won. And signups doubled on this page, conversion increased on this page, engagement increased on this page, bounce rate decreased on this page. And I geek out about that because literally the rectangles in the second version were just like better rectangles than in the first version. And I think this example is so helpful to see like how much influence little design changes can have on the entire experience as well as the business impact. With this experiment, we didn't just push these metrics up, we also brought more craft to this particular page and to the work. And that brings me to my next point, which is that growth design is the move for designers because it can help elevate our craft. It can bring confidence into our decision-making. It can make us more collaborative partners to the people that we're working with. And it can introduce curiosity into our process. Again, I come with receipts, starting with confidence. Testing our ideas in the real world doesn't just bring us these one-off insights. It can give us this like bank of learnings that we can base our future decisions on. And that can help us with not needing to guess as much when we go to design. This heat map from a pricing page is a great example of this. If we look in the bottom right corner here, this heat map was showing us that over 10% of our clicks on this page were going CTA. And if any of y'all have had the privilege of designing a pricing page, you know we really want these clicks to go to the main core CTAs in the plan cards and get people to check out. So because of this insight, the next version of the page was able to solve for this, bringing relevant information on the page and allowing us to not have that secondary CTA that was driving traffic off page. And overall, that made the page more, it allowed the page to be more scannable for users and also more performant on the business side. So this is just one example, but the more learnings that you start to have like this, the more that you know where to spend your energy in the design process, and you can know where to pack your punch in the right spot when it comes to bringing the craft to the work. Secondly, growth can unlock collaboration. And I totally understand how sometimes we're juggling a lot as designers with the different goals, but I've started to find that experiments can both validate performance just as much as validating things that work on the craft side. And this can lead to more collaborative dialogue, so that when a client or a stakeholder says, hey, can we make our CTAs rainbow neon colored to see if they convert better? Instead of us taking our laptops and looking for the nearest body of water to chuck them into, we can respond with, what if we test this instead? Or better yet, we actually tried neon rainbow buttons already, and here's what we learned. A quick example on this one, we actually ran an experiment that removed an animation from a product page. And we wanted to do this to make sure that the animation didn't distract from our CTAs, because it had these really lovely interactions, these micro interactions when you hovered over it. So the team wanted to make sure that that wasn't distracting people from the main action of clicking to sign up. So we removed it. And I will tell you, I was stressed about this test. I was thinking, what will we do if the blank version wins? It is so empty and so much less expressive. Where's the nearest body of water for my laptop? But we ran this test, and it was completely neutral. So we brought our animation back, and we suddenly had validation to continue using it in other places, knowing that it wasn't this big trade-off on performance. So when you validate what works, you're building those learnings with everyone that you're working with, and that can allow you to have easier buy-in for more ambitious design ideas, knowing that you already solved for other goals, and it can make you a more empathetic and strategic partner to the folks that you're working with, who might have, of course, craft might not be their top goal. And lastly, growth design can bring curiosity into our workflow. Working iteratively can make the design process a lot more flexible and less precious, because you're going to learn no matter what. And on this note, I wanted to just share personally that this has helped me a lot with my perfectionism. I am certainly a bit of an overthinker, and I don't think I'm alone on that in this particular room. Maybe some of us have seen that tweet. I think it says, I can't believe I made a career out of my overthinking. And I know it can feel that way. But having this more iterative process has been kind of a compliment to that. And I guess I'm just saying that, my fellow overthinkers, if we just test things, we're so back. So with that, let's talk about how we can measure what's actually working. And we'll talk about a couple tools and workflows that we can use to bring growth into our process. We'll start with the tools, and there are so many analytics tools out there, but I want to talk about a few that I think we can leverage easily as designers. We'll start with everyone's fave, which is Zoom, of course. I would recommend using a tool like this to gather user feedback, and you can do this in a scrappy way, just like sending someone a link and getting them to talk or walk through their design or your design. You can gain so much invaluable insight from watching people, even just seeing their body language. You can see what is confusing and what is intuitive, and then you can use those learnings to bring that into your designs before you even ship them live. For observing user behavior after you have shipped something, I highly recommend a tool like Hotjar, which is what we're looking at here. This type of tool gives you access to a view of all the clicks and interactions on a given page, and it gives you access to a bank of session recordings, so you can just click in and watch people actually use your design. And this, of course, gives you a very instant reference on how the work is being used and where you might be able to improve it. And lastly, for documenting and brainstorming, here at Figma, we use Notion to document our learnings. And I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but we use FigJam to brainstorm and plan our future experiments. So those are a handful of tools, but you definitely don't need to use all of them. It is just about using the ones that fit best for your workflow. And I think growth can flex to different workflows depending on what you want to get out of it. So I wanted to give a couple tips depending on your team size. For teams of one, I would recommend checking with your client or your team to see if there is any existing data around audience insight or user behavior. That can give you a starting point on some of your design decisions. And outside of that, I would say self-initiated user testing can help you get that wider perspective on the work before you hand it off. For small teams, a heat map tool like the one we just looked at is super helpful, and pairing that with something like basic web tracking, like knowing how people are converting or the session time, that's more than enough. The first startup that I ever worked at was myself as a brand designer and our head of marketing. His name was Phil. His name is still Phil. But this was actually our whole workflow, and we were able to get quite a long way just using just these two things. So a simple process can be enough. And lastly, for big teams, chances are high that you have access to user researchers or data analysts, and these folks are actual wizards. So I would start there and see what existing learnings you might be able to pull from. And then I think there's also something here around collaboration and finding a process with your team for testing. And recently at Figma, we were able to hand off a page with 4 different versions because we knew early enough in the process that it was the type of page we wanted to test. So that said, we were, if you come across a couple of strong designs during your process, which many of us do as we tinker with the best options, maybe you can check in with your team to see if you can test those and start gaining some learnings that way. So, okay, we laughed, we cried, we talked about growth. Y'all let me bring some serious Bill Nye science rules energy, and I appreciate it. Let's do a quick recap. Growth design is a workflow that's based on experimentation and iteration. It can be a craft and a business driver by helping us make more informed decisions. And it's an adaptable process that can flex to different things depending on what we want to get out of it. I want to close this morning with a thought that came up for me while I was prepping for this talk. It is inspired by the author Zadie Smith, who is doing some reflection on how her writing, it teaches her the rules of writing while she writes. And I know that's meta, but the thought that came up was, the work teaches you how to do the work. And this idea really captures my feelings about creativity in general. We learn by doing and by trying things, and growth design is certainly science, right? It's math a little bit, and it's measurement. But if designers embrace it, we can bring the heart to it and the art to it. And I know that we're in a time right now where there is so much to make, and seemingly a million ways to make. And it makes me feel like more strongly than ever that we can just not only make things, but we can make them better. And we can start learning how to advocate for the beautiful things that we want to see in the world so that we can get to see more and more of them. So I hope that something shared today is helpful in whatever you might make better next. And with that, thank you all so much. I appreciate your time. Peace. Thank you.